This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, great. So we're ready to begin. Again, thank you all for joining me today. And I hope you're as excited as I am to talk about sort of the new normal of participating in job fairs, which is virtually. So this webinar will be just covering the basics of participating in a virtual job fair, what a virtual job fair is, some of the benefits and the drawbacks, more importantly, how to prepare to, and I will give you some tips on how to make the most of a virtual job fair. A few housekeeping items. I've muted everyone to try to cut down on the background noise and feedback, but I will monitor the chat box to see if there's any questions. And if there's anything that I have not addressed during the presentation, we will address it at the end. So again, it's it's a little bit past 10 now, so I like to start on time and end on time, so we're going to get going. So my name is Liz Hart, and I am the founder and executive director of Tailored for Success. And Tailored for Success is a nonprofit organization that is based in Malden, Mass. And we focus on helping individuals find, prepare, and succeed in the workforce. I'd like to congratulate you all for taking the time to work on your professional development during these challenging times. My background is 20 years of experience in workforce development, career transition, and workshop facilitation. I am also a certified AAUW salary negotiation facilitator. So if there's any questions regarding salary negotiation, which I know is a little bit off topic, I can try to answer those for you. So here is our agenda. Like I said earlier, we'll cover the basics of preparing for a virtual career fair, and we will review what a virtual job fair is and how it's different from a regular in-person job fair, how to prepare, the different steps that you can take to prepare before the virtual job fair, and what you can do to make sure that you're using the time that you're spending at the job fair effectively. What happens, what to expect when you're participating in a job fair regarding chats, there's company presentations and so forth. So I will talk a little bit about that. Mostly important is how to follow up and tips to help you succeed. And by succeed, what I'm talking about is getting past the initial screening to be asked to participate in an actual interview, whether it's virtual or in person, for the position that you're interested in. A lot of people leave the last tip, follow up, to chance. They don't recognize the fact that even though it's a virtual job fair or any job fair, even if it's in person, it's really important to follow up with the people that you've made contact with at the job fair to make sure that you leave them with a really good lasting impression. And as I said, I will monitor the chat for some questions. And this presentation is being recorded, and I will send the recording out along with some resources to you after the webinar. So a job fair, whether it is virtual or in person, is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for job seekers and employers to meet. That's basically what it is. And when it's a virtual job fair, people meet virtually rather than in person. Most of them are conducted online, but I have seen instances where people will do screening on the telephone. But if you want to look at a definition of what a virtual job fair is, it's an online job fair, also known as a virtual job fair or electronic job fair. So don't get confused if it's used, if the terms are a little bit different. That is just an online version of a traditional job fair. Like I said, it brings employers together with job seekers so that they can meet and discuss opportunities for employment that may be mutually beneficial for the employee and for the company. The good thing is that there's no more standing in line to talk to a recruiter. So you may be put in a queue to participate in a chat with a recruiter, but you don't have to stand for long periods of time. So in my mind, this is a real benefit of participating in a virtual job fair. The virtual job fair, just like the in-person, gives both individuals a chance to evaluate whether there's fit. And there really should be mutual benefit. It gives you a chance to improve your networking and interviewing skills. And if you're an introvert, participating in a virtual job fair is great because you can reach out and talk to people, or you can just monitor the chats and you really don't have to say anything at all. And it helps you build your confidence when it comes to actually talking to a recruiter or interviewing. Maybe you have been out of the job search arena, out of the job market for a while, and your interviewing skills are rusty. This is a really good place to practice. Or maybe, unfortunately, due to the situations that we're finding ourselves in now, you've been laid off temporarily and you need to get back into the job market, and you're not really sure about your interviewing skills. Well, a virtual job fair is a chance to help you practice those skills and build up your self-confidence. It's so good for not only just interviewing, but also for networking. Some of the job fairs that are online have rooms that you can go into, breakout rooms where you can network with other participants, network with companies, and so forth. And it really is a good opportunity for you just to expand those skills and feel really, really comfortable, so that if it does go beyond just the online screening and you get an actual virtual interview, or when this is all over and things are a little bit back to normal and you get an in-person interview, you'll feel more confident about it because you practiced. And it does have all the features of an in-person job fair, but just so much more. You get the chance to listen in on other chats to find out about employers where you wouldn't get to do that at an in-person one, because you wouldn't be standing near enough to someone to be able to hear what they're talking about. It also is a really good time saver because you can split up your time a little bit better, and you can organize your time much better at a virtual job fair than you can at an in-person one. The one thing that is really different about a virtual job fair is that you don't get loaded down with all the tchotchkes that the recruiters bring. And by that, I'm meaning the pens, the stress balls, maybe keychains. At a virtual job fair, you do get takeaways. You get handouts, very informative handouts from the companies that you can download. So you do get stuff, but you don't get all the stuff that, just piles up in your bag and you never use it anyway, except for the hand sanitizer that everybody's using right now. But you get some really, really good stuff that you can use later on. So let's talk a little bit about preparation. There's a very famous quote that says, "Proper preparation prevents poor performance." This definitely applies to a virtual job fair. There are a number of things that you can do to prepare prior to the job fair to make sure that the experience is a successful one, a comfortable one for you, and that you make a really good first impression on a potential employer. And what I'm going to do is go over 10 tips that I've put together for participating in a virtual job fair that I think will help you. And these tips can be done a week before, 2 weeks before. As soon as you know of a virtual job fair that's coming up, look at the site and see when exactly you can log in, because that will give you an idea of how much lead time that you need to prepare, to upload resumes and so forth. And also at these virtual job fairs, there's a lot of reading to be done about the companies. The companies will each have pages, and so you can do advanced reading and research on the company beforehand. So with that, let's talk about the first tip, and that is the homework. To do your homework and research employers and job openings that fit for what you are looking for. You want to go beyond demonstrating basic knowledge about the company. And by basic knowledge, I mean anything that anyone else could find by just looking at their website. That's not really doing the kind of research that's going to make you stand apart in a virtual job fair. The virtual job fair sites will list the companies that are participating and give you basic information on their pages. But you should try to go one step further and do a Google search with a specific question in mind. For instance, if you are looking at, say, Deloitte as a company that you would be interested in applying to a position for, you might Google what challenges has Deloitte faced in the last year, and then come up with a question that you can then ask the employer. So not what challenges has Deloitte come up with, has Deloitte faced in the past year, but perhaps how did Deloitte solve the problem of other companies moving into a specific market that they were gaining traction on, or something like that. So it goes a little bit beyond just looking at the website, asking questions that you can find the answers to on the website, and really showing the recruiter or the employer, depends on who is going to be there, that you've really done your homework and you're really interested in this company. The second tip is to make sure that you check your technology. Murphy's Law is in full effect when it comes to virtual interviewing, virtual job fairs, participating in anything online. You want to make sure that you've got a really strong internet connection, that your microphone and your webcam are working in good working order. And it's a good idea to log on to the virtual job fair a few minutes before it starts to make sure that you've got everything in good working order. And with that, you want to make sure that your physical space is pleasing. You never know, just because this is a virtual job fair doesn't mean that you may or may not get an interview right there on the spot. And if so, you want to make sure that your background is professional and gives a good impression to the person that you're talking to. You also want to make sure that your space is quiet so that you can minimize any distractions. And a really good tip that I learned recently was these job fairs typically go from, say, 10 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, you don't have to stay there for the whole time, but you want to plan to participate for an hour or two here and there, maybe take a break. But if you are participating for more than an hour, you want to make sure that you have some water handy and perhaps a snack to keep your energy up, because these things do take time, and you want to make sure that you are showing your interviewer that you have a lot of energy and that you're really excited and you are the person that they should continue with and follow up for a in-person interview. It goes without saying that you should make sure that your resume and LinkedIn profile are as up to date as possible. And when you're looking at updating your resume and your LinkedIn, you want to make sure that it is updated and tailored to the position that you are looking for. Unfortunately, one size does not fit all when it comes to resumes or LinkedIn profiles. I mean, if you are switching careers, or if you are looking for something that is very specific and you want to make sure that the interviewer knows that you know what you're talking about and you have experience in this and you're well positioned to interview for this, you want to make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn profile show that in the best light possible. It gets a little tricky if you're interested in more than one position. So then you're going to have to really tailor your LinkedIn profile to be all encompassing of all of your skills, a little bit of this position and a little bit of that position, so that they get a good idea. But on your resume, you want to make sure that each resume that you submit to an employer is tailored to that employer. So it does take a little bit of work on that. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that now because it's not a resume writing workshop, but I just want to make sure that I point that out to you. Another thing is to make sure that your resume is uploaded in a PDF format so that it doesn't get the margins and the type doesn't get messed up when you're uploading it, because it just doesn't transfer well. If you make sure it's in a PDF, everything is going to stay just the way that you want it to stay so that it looks perfect. You're going to want to practice your elevator pitch, which will tell recruiters a little bit about you. Now, elevator pitches, especially in this virtual environment, are about a 1 to 2 minute short statement about yourself. And you should be ready with not only just your elevator pitch, but also some accomplishment statements that you can say if the recruiter asks you specific questions about, how you handle difficult situations, how accomplished you are at performing a certain task. You should just be ready with this. So the good thing about a virtual interview is that you can prepare all this ahead of time. And you can have it all typed out right near you, and you can just, read from what you wrote, or when you're in the chat, you can just retype or copy and paste what you wrote. And then you won't have to worry about memorizing things, and it can seem more natural than if you were in an in-person job fair where you have to kind of think on your feet. You can be prepared for any questions that might come up beforehand. You want to talk about your accomplishments. There's a acronym called a PAR, P-A-R. It's a PAR statement: problem, action, and result. You could just Google that and get some information on how to prepare an accurate one that really shows you in the best light. But I think that this kind of statement is a really good one for demonstrating to the employer that you are the person that they should be looking at and be interested in going the next step, which is a virtual interview or a telephone screen. You should be prepared to ask and questions beforehand and answer interview questions. So there's the typical interview questions that we all know about. Tell me a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in this company, and so forth. But again, I think that it's always good to make yourself stand out a little bit. Before the COVID-19, it was an employee's market. And so employers were really desperate to hire people, and I fear that it's going to become an employer's market when this is all done. And even now, I mean, interviews are going on now, even though we are all social distancing. So you want to make sure that you put yourself in the best light and that you are as prepared as possible. There is a website. It's called jobinterviewquestions.com, and I will send all this out afterwards. And it has a really, really good list of the most common interview questions so that you can kind of practice them, write out your answers, practice saying them so that you're all set. And again, you can type these things out because it's a virtual job fair. You can just copy and paste, and you can just put the answers in there. One thing that people forget about when they're participating in a virtual interview or virtual job fair is what they're going to be wearing. Obviously, you're not going to wear a three-piece suit or any kind of formal interview wear. Business casual is perfect, especially now where everyone is working from home. You don't want to be overdressed and overly formal, but you want to appear that you are professional, you know what business casual looks like. Most of the companies are business casual now anyway, and it really makes a difference to your mindset to dress for the virtual job fair, even though someone may not even see you, because it puts you in the professional mindset to do it. So pay attention to that, and make sure that you're dressed appropriately. And also, if you happen to get a interview on the spot, they may want to talk to you offline, then you're already prepared. You want to be organized as possible, have some note paper and a pen handy. Um, you want to make sure that any notes that you take, that you follow up. These are also really good to use on your follow-up thank you email afterwards. You want to have a calendar reminder. If you're in active job search, there's probably going to be a lot of virtual job fairs that you're going to participate in. So you want to set a calendar reminder, a few days before, so that you don't miss the opportunity to participate in a job fair. And you want to have some sort of a tracking system to, this just is basic Job Search 101. If you're applying to a lot of different positions, you want to make sure that you have some sort of tracking system. It could be on paper, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, or it could be something that's in Google Docs, where you keep track of where you're applying, what position, what resume you used, any notes that would help you recall what the recruiter said to you, or so forth, so that you're organized, so that if 3 weeks from now someone gets back to you, you remember everything that went on during that interview process, so that you can again impress the person that is going to be interviewing you. Like I said earlier, there are networking opportunities in a couple of different ways. Companies will give short presentations during these virtual job fairs. They will have rooms set aside, breakout rooms with the software that they use to, that the host company uses to conduct it, to give companies a platform to make a presentation. So that's a little bit of networking that you can do there. Some of the virtual career fairs are very sophisticated, and they'll have on-site career coaching, virtual networking lounges, so that you can be in one place with a bunch of different job seekers and have a chat and introduce yourself just like you would in any other kind of in-person networking. So again, it's just like an in-person job fair, but it's just virtual. So you have to kind of wrap your mind around that a little bit, but you can still make really good contacts by participating in a virtual job fair. So it's really important to make sure that you have some tips and some tricks for succeeding in a virtual job fair. We're coming towards the end of the webinar now, and I would be remiss if I didn't give you some inside tricks that I have learned over my experience in workforce development, of what can help you with whether the job fair is in person or it's virtual. There's those little tips that kind of set you apart and give you an edge when you are participating. So you want to make sure, again, to check in as early as you can. You don't want to wait to the last second to check into a virtual job fair. Also, most online career fairs have a landing page that will list the companies attending. If you remember, my first slide in this presentation was a screenshot of what a landing page looks like for a virtual job fair, if you have not seen it before. You want to research the companies ideally a week before, and again, you want to do that in-depth research. You don't want to just look at the website or just rely on the information that the company has provided that you can download, because you want to go a little bit further so that you stand out to the recruiter. You want to prepare those responses, practice typing them out. type them out beforehand, practice copying and pasting so that it seems very seamless when you're doing it. You want to watch your spelling when you're participating in the chat, and it's always a good idea just to be as polite as possible with the recruiter, to address them as Mr. or Ms., unless they otherwise tell you to do so. It's just courtesy, and it's really good etiquette to be able to do that. So the follow-up is the mistake that a lot of beginners make. In this age of technology and everything being done virtually, people think that it's really not necessary to follow up, and especially to send a thank you note. And I can tell you from the times that I have had experience interviewing people and talking to companies that have hired people, we do some job placement at Tailored for Success. They all say the same thing, is that the people that stand out to them are the ones that follow up afterwards. So you want to send a thank you email to everyone that you connected to on the virtual job fair, and in your notes you should have something to put with that with that email, to reference back to the conversation you had. So it could be a little bit, they talked about maybe the company culture in the chat. Well, in your thank you, you want to say, thank you for giving me some more information about the company. Your company culture sounds like one that would really appeal to me, and I'd like to take this further. So always follow up. And here's another one of those pro tips. Always request to connect with the person that you spoke to on LinkedIn, but don't just send them requests to connect on LinkedIn. Add a personal note. I spoke to you on such and such a day during the virtual job fair, and I want to connect so that we can get to know each other a little bit better, and I can ask you more questions about the company, whatever. I enjoyed our talk, our chat together on the virtual job fair, whatever it is. But make sure that you send a personal note so that they understand. Some people will not connect with you unless you send a personal note. I get requests all the time on my LinkedIn profile for people to connect with me, and if they don't have a personal note or show some kind of connection as to why we should be connecting, I usually don't connect with them, because I think that they're just, they're just trying to get as many connections as possible, and those connections are not really what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn is for developing relationships, and this is where the relationship starts. So always add a personal note. And then be bold. Ask the recruiter if you can schedule an informational interview. It's no promise of a job. It's no promise of going any further, but it will just give you some more information that that you can use, if not for this position, for another. And also, I neglected to say that when you are participating in a virtual job fair, don't just focus on the open positions that you see there. There could be other positions. So you might want to dig a little bit deeper, or go to the company website and see what other positions. Maybe they're only highlighting a few of the positions that are open at that company, but there could be many, many more. So now I'm going to look and see if we've got any questions in the chat. 1 second. Okay, so I do have one question from wondering about if a virtual background is okay, and how do you get the green screen background? That's supposed to be the best one. As far as I know, that is from Zoom, but I would Google that. My personal opinion is I don't like those virtual backgrounds, because if you don't have a really good internet connection, you can seem like you're almost from another planet, right? You've got all this screen around you, and it just to me, it just doesn't seem as genuine as it would if you were just showing, like a bookcase behind you or something like that. My personal opinion is to make sure that you have a realistic background. And if you're like me at all, I have a 8-year-old that is doing Zoom calls, and I was on a conference once and forgot to check the setting, and there was some funky background there. So you just never know. But that's my personal opinion. So you can do what makes you feel more comfortable. Maybe you don't have a nice setting behind you, and so you have to use the virtual background. So that's fine. So I want to thank you all for participating in this. I just want to get this screen back up. My contact information is here. Do connect with me on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn profile is linkedin.com/in/Elizabeth A. Hart, CEO. Tailored for Success also has a Facebook page and a LinkedIn group page that you can request to be a part of. Any upcoming trainings that I'm going to be having will be posted there. Always follow me on LinkedIn. I always post what upcoming trainings I have. I have some on LinkedIn, developing a LinkedIn profile, talking to companies and interviewing in this virtual atmosphere coming up. And I invite you all to connect with me so that you can get knowledge of that. Thank you again for participating in this webinar, and I will send the recording out in a day or two, along with a resource sheet so that you can do some follow-up on researching companies, researching salaries, so that you are prepared to participate in the virtual career fair. Thank you again, and be well, everyone.